Hello, welcome back to Cinema Splendor, and today we're going to be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I decided this would be the last Marvel movie that I would be extremely excited about, for good reason. Their quality of films has been going down in general lately. I don't think that's too controversial to say. I was excited to see how James Gunn wrapped up his trilogy of the Guardians films, which have always been very unique. So before I continue, I just don't want to sugarcoat it. There's going to be spoilers here, and if you think you want to check out this movie, I would not watch this until after you have.
Green is for red, red is for green.
I don't think so.
Try it then.
Guardians 3 felt like a graduation, a more mature, dark, and dramatic look at the Guardians as a whole. There were action, thrills, laughs, they were all there. Honestly, this film did everything for me in terms of entertainment value. I am a big sucker for good direction, interesting world, and some nice laughs in there, so I think this movie really covered all the bases. The Guardians' adventure outweighed the Rocket backstory for me. I've heard a lot of people saying the opposite, but to me the flashbacks with the animals often dragged on really long, and it's not that I didn't like them so much as I didn't want it to be 20 minutes of this 2.5-hour movie. It was very overly cutesy. Like, I wasn't sure if it wanted me to fall in love with the weird, deformed walrus that was experimented on, and the bunny monster that looked like frickin' Sid from Toy Story's toy. I don't know. But it did do a good job of at least fleshing out the world of Rocket. I don't hate it, but it was definitely one of the more dour parts of the movie for me. Every world we visited was actually very interesting, very colorful, very cool, and the emo 90s soundtrack was honestly perfect. Felt like sophomore year of college. They had Space Hog, Radiohead, Heart, Alex Cooper, the Mowgli's, Florence and the Machine, and the Flaming Lips with, there's more than that. Kind of the age of the young Guardians fans are now from 2014. Like, I was 14 when the first movie came out. I'm now 23, so it's been about 10 years. Felt like this music was all really reflective of this state of life that I'm in right now. Wondering if I'm the only one who feels this way, but I don't know. It felt very personal, and it felt very emotional, and the music I thought did a very good job of this graduation kind of vibe. Rocket's story had me all over the place. He was sidelined to suddenly the savior of all the experiments gone wrong, which it was very cute, but Rocket did not really have a complex storyline so much as a very generic, it's easy to feel bad for him storyline. He's still really awesome in the few scenes that he's in as a full mature raccoon. Very cool. ASPCA, get on this. Peter Quill was straight up awkward and very broken in Act 1, which I did not expect, but I think they did do a pretty good job of showing how off the rails he's become.
And some dumbass Earth dude who met a girl, fell in love. That girl died, and then came back a total dick.
But then he switched to a more independent, confident kind of vibe, which I felt like that was fine. I'm glad that he ended where he did, but Peter Quill did not have a crazy arc like he did in the first two films. Gamora was out of place the entire time, but James Gunn was not a coward and he didn't undo the huge effects of the previous films. He actually made some kind of unique choices with Gamora, so even though I don't think there was a whole lot of development for her, she did have a pretty interesting position in the film. Nebula feels like the most competent Guardian on the team, and she's just an absolute badass here. There's not much of an arc, she just gets very angry a lot. I know a lot of people are not gonna like the fact that she just screams at people the whole time, but
Knock it off!
What?
Drax is total comic relief, but I absolutely adore this guy. There were a few touching moments with him, and that's all to expect. Dave Bautista's just always been very charismatic and charming and kind of stupid with Drax. Mantis has a lot of screen time. I'd argue she's still the trademark weird bug girl that nobody knows about, but she's an upgraded character. Her importance was not lost on me. She's got a very big heart and a very childlike state of mind, so she's kind of a perfect counter for Drax, and they're just doing their own thing most of the time. Groot is not prominent in this movie, but he's still lovable in his small doses. I wanted more time and more emotional weight from him, honestly. I don't know what else to say other than him and Rocket used to have a very cool father-son dynamic, and it feels like Groot's just kind of there. They're like, no, Groot, you're useful when you're useful, but otherwise you stay on the ship with the raccoon. And I don't know, I wanted more from Groot. Adam Warlock may as well have been killed right away because he doesn't really have anything to do in this really long movie. I really liked the character and the acting, but just needed to be used in any meaningful way, which they half did, but they didn't. The Haya Evolutionary was a cocky, evil villain and like a real tangible threat, probably overacting a little at times, but pretty great for this story. I don't have many complaints. He did kind of scream a lot and it got annoying, unlike Nebula, whose screaming never gets annoying. And he really did bring a sense of tension and kind of vileness. Cosmo is a good dog. Nowhere was beautiful, a really good starting point, some very nice cinematography in terms of like tracking Rocket in the first shot, and I thought it was pretty nice to show the Guardians rebuilding a society that had literally been there since their first movie, so that was a nice kind of arc. Too bad it got destroyed by Adam. The whatever sphere, I have it written as the gyrosphere. I'm pretty sure that's wrong. It's the meat planet, whatever. That whole break-in sequence was pretty fantastic for me. I thought the coolest vibe in the entire movie was the moon landing when they're talking with the staticky suits and pressing the buttons to speak with one another. And Star-Lord started coming into his own around this part with like smooth talking the secretary, which was nice. The stupid suits kind of got in the way of me enjoying like the entirety of the meat planet because Nathan Fillion looks really stupid. Counter-Earth was so freaking interesting. It felt like it could take up way more screen time than it actually had. Because the assimilation of the Guardians on like the Earth-like planet, that was a perfect dichotomy to all the crazy space adventures they'd have. Trying to open the door made me laugh. The Bat family was pretty interesting. I thought it was funny that Drax instantly KOs this kid with a dodgeball the second they land on the planet. The High Evolutionary ship had lots of ups. Like, the corridor fight was probably the most satisfying action piece of the whole movie. The ship had some really strange downs. Like, the kid's rescue mission felt kind of flat. There was an overabundance of, like, CGI animals. Like, and I'm talking, like, thousands of CGI animals. Like, it was so many animals. Nebula, Mantis, and Drax felt like they had, like, filler for the whole third act. Like, they didn't have much to do until they actually linked up with the other Guardians. Now, one of my bigger negatives, I wish this movie had more personal stakes for most of the cast. Like, other than Quill and Gamora having this weird will they won't they dynamic, and the unconscious raccoon's poor, like, sad sob story, they hadn't really made high stakes, and the first two films did a much better job of involving everybody on a very deep and personal level, so it was kind of a bummer to not have that. But back to my earlier point, the movie was graduating from the MCU. Maybe with our Guardians crew realizing they have obligations to other people. I would have liked to see the script address this more before the last 20 minutes, though I don't really hate where any of the characters ended up. I want to address that this is a pretty violent film for PG-13. Apparently a lot of people didn't like that. I thought it was pretty awesome, but it's also very light on death. I mean, we all know none of the Guardians actually die in this movie. It's just some CGI pets and casual homeowners, which, okay, that's kind of devastating now that I'm thinking about it. I think I wanted to see a couple of Guardians die. Namely, I thought Drax was definitely going to hit it. There were indications that Rocket Raccoon was going to be goodbye. I think at least one major death would have brought it to a new devastating level. There's a part where Star-Lord literally tells Groot, "We're going to kill everybody in this room." And the audience is like, yes! Overall, the big set pieces and awesome heists and missions outweighed the uneven script. The actors, the comedy, they overshadowed some very knee-deep character development. Gunn's directing is really turning into something exciting. I thought the Suicide Squad showed some of his better vision and choreography, but this movie, he really swung for the fences a lot with the moon landing meat planet scene and also Counter-Earth. It feels like James Gunn's artistic vision paid off in a way that his script did not. This is one of my favorite movies of the year, but I think it still had more to be desired. I'm not going to be as invested in Marvel as I am anymore, which is sad because I've been following these movies since I was literally 10 years old. So I'm just going to try to be open-minded about what I'm checking out in the future. I'm not going to diss Marvel or avoid them so much as, I don't care so much anymore. This is a good graduation for me, good time to pass the torch to a new group of people who will, be fighting, I guess, Jonathan Majors. Anyway, I'm going to give a 7 out of 10 to this movie. I had fun, and I think you will too. So thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe, and I hope you have a fantastic evening.
We're listening to everything you're saying.
And it is painful.